Chapter 61 I Want to Become a Mutant. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If they don't have strong power to protect themselves, then mutants will be meat on the chopping block. What I said is not justice, it's just reality. Bai Ye looked at the mutants present calmly and said, if I am hostile to you, you will not live for more than 3 seconds, especially Professor X. In fact, I have always felt that as the leader of the mutants, you should not be so public. It only takes one bullet to paralyze you. Bai Ye looked at Professor X and told the truth. To Bai Ye at this moment, the people present were all a group of high-attack crispy types who could hit 2 cakes with 1 punch. As long as Professor X is killed, others are no threat to him. Looking at the young man who stood up and looked down at him and others, Professor X lowered his head and fell into deep thought. Cyclops, on the other hand, was a little unconvinced, but as soon as he raised his head, he noticed a light hit on his head. The next moment, thick red lasers burst out from his eyes, piercing the wall in front of him, and he was so scared that he quickly closed his eyes. Everything that happened suddenly shocked the others. Jean Grey subconsciously wanted to activate her telekinesis, but the next moment her vision turned red and Bai Ye had already put her boyfriend's glasses on her head. When he turned around, he saw that Bai Ye, the instigator, had returned to his original position and was looking at them calmly. You see, this is the difference between us. Bai Ye spread his hands and looked at Cyclops, who had his eyes closed tightly, and Jean Grey, who was wearing glasses. The shortcomings of this extreme development are too great, and it will become useless as long as it is targeted. This is a sneak attack. Cyclops covered his eyes tightly to prevent the laser from his eyes from hurting others. If you can't open your eyes, don't be so harsh. Unless your eyeballs can keep up with the bullets, you won't even be able to catch up with my footsteps. Bai Ye teased. Jean Grey on the side quickly took off her glasses and put them on her boyfriend. Only then could Cyclops see. She looked at Bai Ye and said, let's compete again, just. Before he finished speaking, a familiar feeling came to him again. Bai Ye looked at Cyclops, who had hurriedly closed his eyes again, and gently turned the captured glasses in his hand with his index finger. Do you need me to demonstrate again? Bai Ye smiled and threw the glasses back, looking at Cyclops, who put his glasses back on. Everyone had to admit that compared to Bai Ye, their movements were indeed too slow. If this boy was really hostile, it would only take a moment to kill them. In a certain base near the sea, Magneto looked at Saber-Toothed Tiger, who had only one person come back to report, and asked, what happened? The target was cut off by a human named Bai Ye. Saber-Toothed Tiger said. Bai Ye? Magneto thought of the interview a week ago. How did you run into him? It seems to be a request from the X-Men, and our plan was known to that person. He knew about us making the machine. Saber-Toothed Tiger said. How is this possible? Did Charles peek into your memory? Magneto pondered. No, it seems that only that person knows, and he said that the machine we made has a big defect, and asked us to find him within 3 days. He wants to talk to us. Is the machine defective? Want to talk to me? Magneto was even more puzzled that a human would want to talk to a mutant like him. What was there to talk about? Okay, I want to see what he wants to talk to me about. Magneto said calmly, immediately ask your subordinates to investigate the whereabouts of Bai Ye and the target. Half an hour later, Saber-Toothed Tiger, who had collected information through his subordinates, came back and said, the news just passed back from the inside of Xavier Academy said that Bai Ye has come to the Mutant Academy with a target. But I didn't stay long. There seemed to be a conflict with the X-Men. I didn't stay long and just left the Academy with the target. There was a conflict with the X-Men. Magneto, who was originally dissatisfied with Bai Ye's visit to the Academy, slightly raised his lips and said, send me his current location, and I'll go directly to him. After the words fell, the old man squeezed his right hand slightly, and the metal wall behind him turned into a huge iron plate under his control. Magneto took a gentle step forward and stepped on the smooth iron plate. Under the control of the magnetic field, the iron plate rose into the air and took him flying out of the base and across the sea. Bai Ye drove the car and headed back. While looking ahead, he said to the little naughty boy and the co-pilot, are you sure you don't want to stay in the Academy and want to leave with me? The little naughty guy nodded solemnly and said, I'll just follow you. Is there anything you need my help with? Help. Bai Ye thought for a moment and said, you should try to control your own abilities during this period, such as only absorbing other people's physical strength after touching them. Or try to develop abilities and see if you can absorb abilities through air or allow inanimate objects to absorb their qualities through contact. By the way, let's see if we can permanently preserve or pass on the abilities we have absorbed. Bai Ye said casually, what he said can be done by the Rugrats in the comics. There is no reason why they can't do it now. The reason why the original plot of the movie is so useless is probably because he is resistant to his own abilities and has never used them a few times, let alone develop them, control absorptive capacity. The little naughty looked at his hands and fell into deep thought. Bai Ye's suggestions were indeed good, but, I don't know who I want to use it on, how can I practice it? It doesn't matter. I'll buy you a basket of white mice tomorrow and you can practice with them. Bai Ye said nonchalantly. Anyway, Shushu's life is not worth a few dollars, it's very cheap, guinea pig. The little naughty boy, who didn't expect that he could practice like this, was stunned for a moment, and then he thought it was great to practice like this, but just as she was about to speak, she found that with a crunching sound of steel, the entire car was suspended in midair and stopped moving forward. What happened? The little naughty boy was startled when he saw the supernatural phenomenon in front of him. It's nothing, just another mutant. Wait for me here for a while. Bai Ye's tone was extremely relaxed, and he felt in his heart that he was worthy of being a villain. This execution was too strong. After opening the door and getting out of the car, I looked up and saw an old man with a metal helmet on his head stepping on a huge steel millstone and descending. Human, I heard you were looking for me, and now I'm here. Magneto said, the metal disc under his feet split into 4 sharp iron spears, surrounding him. If what Bai Ye said next made him dissatisfied, he would immediately attack. Bai Ye didn't waste any time and said bluntly, I want to become a mutant and I want to borrow the machine you have. Magneto. Chapter 62 Speed of Sound and Promise. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. What did you say? You want to be a mutant? Magneto was surprised by Bai Ye's speech. Is this difficult to understand? I have never discriminated against mutants and humans. If I can have one more ability, what if I become a mutant? Bai Ye looked directly at Magneto and said, looking at the human in front of him who admired mutants, Magneto's originally tough attitude softened significantly. Indeed, if this boy also becomes a mutant in the future, he will be one of the same kind, one of our own. Then what's going on with the defective machine you told Sabretooth? Magneto asked. Because it is indeed the case. All mutants transformed by that machine will die due to genetic breakdown. This will become clear after subsequent experiments. Bai Ye looked at Magneto and said without waiting for him to ask, as for me, my body's healing ability is beyond ordinary people. It's just a cell breakdown. My body can bear it. So let me become a mutant. Bai Ye looked at Magneto and said confidently, if I become a mutant, the entire mutant population will become great because of my existence. Just because of you, the mutant abilities you obtain are all random. How can you have such confidence? Magneto frowned, but in an instant, a large crater about 2 meters wide opened up in the ground under Bai Ye's feet. Bai Ye's figure was already standing in front of Magneto, and at the same time. Boom! Only then did the huge explosion reach Magneto's ears, followed by the roaring wind blowing in front of him and making Lao Wan's robes rustle. Magneto's pupils suddenly shrank. Looking at the confident figure twisting 4 iron spears into a ball in front of him, he was horrified. The sound was actually felt later in the evening than the figure. Even if I have no other abilities, I can dominate all things with pure force. No matter what kind of mutant ability it is just the icing on the cake for me. Bai Ye said calmly as he looked at Magneto who was close at hand. It was only then that Magneto realized that he had been overconfident. He had watched the video of the Bai battle before, and what he was most concerned about was the speed like a cannonball, so he specially set aside a reaction distance of 10 meters to prevent sneak attacks. but at this moment, Bai Ye's speed was more than twice as fast as before, and at a certain moment it was even faster than the sound. Magneto's reaction is not much different between 10 meters and 1 meter in front of the speed of sound, and this is just the result of Bai Ye's training in less than a month. In the car, the little naughty boy who heard the explosion stuck his head out of the window to observe, but saw Bai Ye adjusting Magneto's collar with a smile. Think about it, let me be you, and then as a mutant, be held high in the sky by everyone. Bai Ye said with a smile. I will prove to you that in less than 3 years, the situation of the entire mutant population will be improved. Whether they are humans or other creatures, capable people should not be discriminated against because of their identity. Are you right? Bai Ye's words were like Pandora's box, coaxing Magneto. At this moment, Bai Ye's words reminded him of the Black Emperor who was in the concentration camp when he was a child. He seemed to have said the same thing to himself at that time. Magneto was silent for a long time, looking at the exploded earth pit in the distance and Bai Ye's smiling face, and solemnly said, I hope you won't let me down. I never disappoint. Bai Ye smiled and stretched out his right arm and said, Happy cooperation in the future, Max Eisenhardt. Hearing this name that had not been called for a long time, Magneto stretched out his hand and shook Bai Ye's hand firmly. Very good, we will be allies from now on. Time is running out, why don't we go see your transformation machine now? Bai Ye said with a smile. Magneto completely relaxed after making his choice and agreed, no problem. Bai Ye returned to the car happily and looked at the naughty boy next to him. Get ready, we are going to change our destination. Change destination? Where to go? Little Naughty asked in a daze. The base where the mutant who was planning to capture you is located, where I will become the same kind as you. Bai Ye said. The next moment, under the control of Magneto, Bai Ye's car floated instantly and flew towards the base established on the island. Name, Bai Ye, lifespan, 18/5W. Strength, 2.8 plus 0.4, strength 100 tons, ultimate speed using internal force 345 meters per second, physique, 2.7 plus 0.4, purple Xia magic skill practice speed, 15 seconds for a trace of internal power, now possessing internal power for 150 years, spirit, 2.7 plus, charisma, 1.4 plus, attribute points to be used, 0.1, note, the protagonist of the information in brackets is not visible. Half an hour later, as the car slowly landed, Bai Ye saw the island in front of him that was also full of mutants. It's just that compared to Professor I in fact, he had the experience of being ostracized and disgusted by humans because of mutants' facial flaws, otherwise no serious mutant would think of joining a terrorist organization like the Brotherhood. As the vehicle slowly landed, a Mystique with blue scales all over her body and the ability to change her appearance followed a group of grotesque mutants and came over. Seeing Bai Ye get out of the car, Mystique said with hostility on her face, Eric, why did you bring this human here? The mutants present were all hostile to ordinary humans. After hearing Mystique's words, they immediately stared at Bai Ye with anger and murderous eyes. If it weren't for Magneto's majesty, they might have pounced on her. Human? No, just like the congressman you captured, he will soon become one of us. Magneto said. You mean? Mystique realized something. That's right, let's start the first test now. You bring the congressman here, and I will awaken the abilities of both of them here. Magneto said. I understand, please wait for me at the experimental table first. Mystique said, then turned and left, leaving only the confused mutants. They didn't understand what the experiment was. Under the leadership of Magneto, several people walked towards the experimental area. On the way, the little naughty boy worried, Sir, are you really going to turn into a mutant through that instrument? Isn't that too dangerous? It doesn't matter. It's just a cell collapse. It can't kill me. Bai Ye said with a smile, not to mention that adding more physical strength can restore the body to its original state. Even with his current healing ability, Bai Ye feels that he can survive cell collapse. Compared with gaining a mutant ability, this small risk is nothing to mention. All he has to pay is the price of becoming a mutant. Chapter 63 Awakening Mutant Ability. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Follow Magneto all the way on the island. After turning several turns in a row and passing a steel bridge made of Magneto's ability to levitate, several people walked into the laboratory built by mutants. The entire laboratory was built in the mountain. After arriving at the destination, Bai Ye looked at the sci-fi instrument in front of him and said, "Is this the mutant converter you built?" Magneto nodded with a heavy face. "If you are right, then this is just a failure. There's no need to eat it and become a big fat man. Maybe you can try to improve it next, and maybe you can fix the flaws." Bai Ye said casually. While a few people were talking, the door behind them slowly opened, and Mystique pushed a man who was fixed in a wheelchair and walked in. The identity of this fixed person is the current U.S. Senator. He has recently been advocating for the Mutant Registration Act and has a hostile attitude towards mutants. This is why Magneto took action on him. Behind Mystique were Saber-Toothed Tiger and the Toad Man. When Saber-Toothed Tiger saw the people around Magneto, his heart sank. He didn't speak, and hid quietly aside. "What do you mutants want?" The man in the wheelchair who was tightly tied to death looked at Magneto and said in panic, "I just want you to cooperate with us in an experiment." Magneto smiled and said to Bai Ye, "The experiment will start soon. You can stand next to him and accept it together." Bai Ye nodded, and under the nervous gaze of the little naughty boy, he slowly walked towards the tied senator. When the senator saw Bai Ye's face, he changed instantly, and he obviously recognized Bai Ye's identity. Are you a mutant too?" "Not now, but it will be soon," Bai Ye said, without any intention of explaining it to the dead man in detail. "As for whether to save the senator, please, it's not him who killed this man. Whether he dies or not is none of his business." Soon, under the uneasy gaze of the senator, Magneto stepped onto the transformation instrument and pressed the buttons on both sides with both hands. After the machine started, an inexplicable suction force began to extract Magneto's mutant abilities wantonly. In just a moment, the expression on Magneto's face changed from peace to pain, and then the cylindrical outer support of the entire instrument began to rotate rapidly. The soft white ball of light began to expand outward little by little, engulfing everyone on the scene and completely affecting the entire interior of the mountain. All those who have awakened the mutant gene are bathed in this light without any feeling, but the only two people at the scene who had not awakened the mutant gene, Bai Ye and Senator, only felt that the cells in their bodies were trembling, and the mutant genes in the cells began to activate in the light. "What abilities can I awaken?" Looking at the light all over the sky, Bai Ye thought curiously, and then his eyes fell on his attribute panel, description column. Your genes experienced an ability induction, and the dormant genes in your body gradually awakened. The total awakening took 2 hours, 15 minutes, and 32 seconds. Awakening ability probability. Virtual 5 3.32%. Position 24.35%. Self-limited 2.33%. Does it take 2 hours to know what your abilities are? There are also these 3 abilities. Is this a card drawing awakening? Bai Ye thought in his heart, and the surrounding light shrank, and finally disappeared into nothing. "Mr. Bai, are you okay?" Seeing that everything was over, the little naughty man ran over nervously and looked Bai Ye up and down. "It feels fine, I don't feel anything at all. It may take a few hours for the effect to appear," Bai Ye said with a smile. The whole process was actually not very painful. Of course the gene awakening is not so fast. The machine's ability is just an inducement. You can rest here today. Magneto stood up from the machine with difficulty and gasped weakly. Soon, under Mystique's arrangement, Bai Ye stayed in a room on the island with the little naughty guest as a distinguished guest. Sitting cross-legged on the floor of the room, Bai Ye, who had no exercise equipment, began to slowly activate his internal energy under the curious eyes of the naughty boy. In the quiet room, as Bai Ye's Zhutian magical power was operating, the slightest breeze swirled around Bai Ye. The purple clouds not only lingered on Bai Ye's face, but loomed around Bai Ye's whole body. "What's this?" The little naughty boy watched in surprise as Bai Ye's inner energy traveled through his meridians and the purple halo bloomed from the skin, as solemn as a god or Buddha, and in Bai Ye's extraordinary hearing, he can hear the sound of internal energy rushing through his veins, just like the Yangtze River. In just 2 hours, he spent peacefully meditating in the white night. Taking advantage of the fragmented time to practice, the internal energy in his body easily increased to the upper limit of 1.5 years. "Mr. Bai, what were you doing just now?" Little Naughty asked curiously, "Is this your mutant ability?" "No, everyone can practice this. As for my mutant ability." Bai Ye looked at his status bar, description column. The total time spent is 2 hours, 15 minutes, and 32 seconds. Your gene awakening ability is Virtualization. The permanent ability Rampage begins, and the improvement of physical attributes can eliminate side effects is the awakening ability of Virtual Blur. Bai Ye looked at the explanation column and thought in his mind, but the next moment a pain came from his arm. The little naughty boy on the side screamed in surprise, because a long and narrow hole was suddenly torn open on Bai Ye's arm, and the muscle fibers and bones under the skin could be clearly seen. Is this the ability to go berserk? Bai Ye thought thoughtfully. You must know that the hardness of his arm is beyond steel. Even if you shoot with bullets, you can't break his skin, but it was torn open so easily. No, it's more like being devoured than torn apart. Bai Ye thought, because he could clearly feel that the mass of his right hand had indeed lost a little bit, about 0.03 grams. It's okay, it's just a minor injury. Looking at the worried little naughty boy, Bai Ye comforted him with a smile. Thanks to the recovery power brought by Physique 3.1, the torn wound on the arm has begun to heal before even bleeding, and it is expected to be back to normal in 4 to 5 minutes. But how should I use my ability? Bai Ye looked at the healed wound on his right hand and thought doubtfully, and then following the feeling rising in his heart, Bai Ye felt his right arm disappear as soon as he thought about it. Looking at the right hand that was still in his sight, Bai Ye slowly touched the little naughty person beside him. In the surprised look of the other party, Bai Ye's right hand and her clothes had a mold-passing phenomenon, and it penetrated easily. Phantom cat? No, it should be a virtual dog. A flash of excitement flashed in Bai Ye's eyes, as if he knew how to use his abilities. Chapter 64 Virtualization. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Mr. Bai, is this your awakened ability? The little naughty boy watched in surprise as Bai Ye's right hand overlapped with his own clothes. I think so. Just wait for me here. Bai Ye said excitedly. The next moment, not only his right hand, but also his whole person disappeared from reality. When Bai Ye's vision returned, he found that he had arrived in an absolutely dark space. In this space, there is no light, no sound, not even air or gravity. It is like being in a silent space. It won't take long for ordinary people to have their internal organs explode and die, but for Bai Ye at this moment, there is no problem in sustaining it for more than 10 minutes in this environment. After some groping in the dark, Bai Ye found out that the entire space was roughly a cube with a side length of 3 meters. So this is what virtualization means. Bai Ye looked at the nothingness in front of him and began to control his abilities. The originally isolated space was introduced to the outside light and air during the white night. The next moment, the originally dark space immediately became bright and gradually became suitable for human habitation, and this also allowed Bai Ye to understand his awakened mutant ability. A simple understanding is that you have a space of free control, and you can let your body shuttle back and forth between the real and virtual spaces at any time. Now that I have this ability, my ability to survive has greatly increased. Bai Ye looked at the space in front of him. As long as you hide in space, Professor. After some experiments, Bai Ye slowly came out of the virtual space and wanted to say hello to the little naughty boy, but the next moment his back hurt and a long and narrow wound tore open his back. Is the spatial ability going berserk and tearing the body apart? Bai Ye guessed in his heart, but he has nothing to worry about. Compared with wounds of this level, the burning damage caused by electric shock training can even boil the brain into vacuoles, but that is not just a practice. Anyway, if you improve your physical fitness, you will be fine. He casually said hello to the little naughty guy. Let's go, now you can use your identity as a mutant to meet Magneto and the others. With that said, Bai Ye took the little naughty's gloved right hand, opened the door and walked out, and soon found Magneto and others discussing something in the hall downstairs. Seeing the white knight coming down, several members of the Brotherhood looked over together. How is it? Your superpower has awakened? Magneto asked. Of course, for me, my ability is not bad. I should be considered a third-level mutant if I'm a virtual person. Bai Ye positioned himself, then in the eyes of several people, his figure penetrated the chair beside him and walked straight over. Seeing Bai Ye's abilities, the eyes of several mutants immediately softened. Magneto said happily, "Welcome to the Brotherhood of Mutants, you will be one of us from now on. Of course, as I said before, I will let the mutants fully integrate into human society." Bai Ye said, and then in the stunned eyes of several people, a wound was torn from the forehead to the jaw. "Are you okay?" Mystique stepped forward to support Bai Ye with concern, her attitude completely different from before. "It doesn't matter. This is the machine defect I mentioned before. Now the ability is starting to go crazy. I need a period of stability." Bai Ye waved his hand nonchalantly, the torn flesh on his face had closed on its own while he was speaking. "If you didn't look carefully, you wouldn't even be able to find the wound. It seems that my plan does need to be changed." Magneto sighed in disappointment. "We originally planned to use a machine to transform all the heads of state participating in the global summit into mutants, but we did not expect that the machine would have such a major flaw. If he really wanted to kill people, his efficiency in controlling S.H.I.E.L.D to kill people would be hundreds of times better than that side-effect transformation machine. It doesn't matter. I have promised to improve the living environment of mutants. You just need to wait patiently. But I think your strength needs to be improved." Bai Ye looked at Magneto and said, "Let's go and contact Kingpin and tell him that it was my instruction, and he will understand how to do it." "Kingpin? That underworld emperor?" Magneto looked at Bai Ye in surprise, not expecting that he would be connected to Kingpin. "Yes, your physical fitness is no different from that of normal people. You can even be defeated by a pistol. Let's go find Kingpin and let you improve." Bai Ye said seriously. In X-Men 3, Magneto, as a level 4 mutant, could obviously move the Golden Gate Bridge weighing hundreds of thousands of tons, but due to poor physical fitness, he was defeated by a syringe and turned into an ordinary person. This combat power match is too good. Outrageous. Since he is one of his own now, Bai Ye is going to let him go to Kingpin for further training and get a century-old spirit or something. When the time comes to fight, just like the sweeping monk, you can create a 3-foot air wall to prevent sneak attacks, otherwise your shortcomings will be too obvious. Although Bai Ye didn't know how Kingpin's internal energy was doing, 7 days had passed. With Kingpin's execution ability, Bai Ye had no doubt that he had 100 or 200 years of energy in his hand. At this moment, Bai Ye had just joined the Brotherhood of Mutants, and he arranged tasks for them in a familiar manner, as if he regarded this place as his home. But Magneto didn't care at all, and was happy to accept it. As long as the living environment of mutants can be improved, what will happen if Bai Ye becomes the leader? If he wants to enjoy himself, he will have plenty of conditions, and he will have to do things in a miserable way every day. Then what are you going to do next? Magneto asked. Of course I will go back to my factory to continue training for the rise of mutants. Bai Ye smiled and said, you just need to quietly endure for a year or two and wait for me to fully grow up. As for the fact that I am a mutant, I don't want the human government to know about it to avoid unnecessary trouble. Bai Ye glanced at a few people, then looked at the little naughty person beside him and said, let's go, leave here with me. I will stay at my house next time. Yeah. The little naughty guy just nodded, and the next moment he was put into the virtual space by Bai Ye. This meeting was very pleasant. If you have any trouble, please contact me. Then I will go back first. Bai Ye said goodbye to several people, and then he jumped up after keeping a safe distance from them. Boom! A huge wave of air rose into the sky, causing several people to step back and squint their eyes. When they looked up, they saw a 2-meter-large crater on the ground, and a large hole was also opened in the ceiling. The sun shines in through the cave. Bai Ye, on the other hand, had already put the car he was driving on the island into the virtual space, relying on his super physical fitness to step on the sea and run wildly. Chapter 65 Smith's Narration. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. At dusk, on a cruise ship off the coast of New York, several young men and women were gathering together to have a carnival on the ship. but one of the young men looked into the distance and suddenly wondered, "Hey, look, something seems to have happened over there. Is there a bomb that has detonated?" Hearing the bomb, the others followed the gaze of the speaking companion. Indeed, on the water in the distance, one wave after another splashed wildly, like a mine exploding, but what frightened them even more was that the splashing waves were coming towards them quickly. Boom! 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 On the calm sea, Bai Ye's right leg suddenly stepped on the water. Under the huge reaction force, the figure disappeared as if teleporting, breaking through heavy wind resistance, and reappeared 70 or 80 meters away, on the water where Bai Ye was before. The sea water rose into the sky under the influence of pressure, setting off waves several meters high. In this way, his body stepped on the water at a high frequency and moved at super high speed. The sea water, which was extremely soft to ordinary people, was like flat ground under his feet, carrying him forward continuously. This was the first time that Bai Ye had unleashed the power in his body so wantonly. After putting all his cell phones and clothes into the virtual space, he flew across the sea level without any worries. Noticing the cruise ship in the distance, Bai Ye didn't pay attention. He was moving at a speed close to the speed of sound. These guys could at most capture his figure while moving, but they couldn't see his appearance clearly. In just an instant, Bai Ye's figure swept past the cruise ship, ran towards the coast, and disappeared over 1,000 meters in 3 seconds. The frightened young men and women on the cruise ship were unable to notice that someone had just passed by. The sound effects like depth charges kept ringing in their ears. Along with the strong wind and the rising sea water, they could not even open their eyes. 3 minutes later, Bai Ye returned to his factory. After taking out the clothes from the virtual space and putting them on, Bai Ye opened the space and released the little naughty boy. The little naughty boy who had just been floating in the gravityless void space for a few minutes was sent out. Then he saw Bai Ye smiling and saying, "We have returned to New York. I will take you to familiarize yourself with the factory first, that is, you a place to practice in the future." "Okay, Mr. Bai." The little naughty nodded vigorously. Now she has complete trust in Bai Ye. "Boss, you're back." Inside the factory, Smith greeted Bai Ye when he saw him. "This is Smith, currently working under me." Bai Ye introduced to both parties. "She is Mary, also a mutant. She will live with me from now on. Tomorrow you buy hundreds of mice and let her practice her abilities." "Oh." Smith nodded, not discriminating against the identity of the little naughty mutant. After all, he initially recognized Bai Ye as a mutant, and until now, he thought Camilla was also a mutant with a physical defect and unable to see the light. However, what would Camilla say about just bringing a beautiful girl home like this? Smith thought to himself without showing it. It was best for him, a wage earner, not to get involved in the boss's love life. Now turn on the machine. Bai Ye felt that another wound was torn open on his ankle by the power runaway. Now he had to quickly increase his physical fitness by 0.1, and then refresh his physical condition to eliminate the negative effects. But, if I let Camilla bite me and transform into a vampire, can the negative effects of being afraid of light and garlic be directly refreshed by improving my physical fitness? Bai Ye thought in his heart. If this can be achieved, there will be a lot of room for maneuver. Suppressing this thought, Bai Ye began to devote himself wholeheartedly to exercise. Soon, under the surprised eyes of the little naughty boy, the steel behind him crushed Bai Ye's back and ankles with a pressure of 40 or 50 tons, and then a strong electric current visible to the naked eye flashed on Bai Ye's body. And then Bai Ye grabbed 80 the oversized iron block weighing tons began to perform deadlifts. Boom, 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 sizzle, crunch. Various sounds echoed in the empty factory. After a while, wisps of white smoke began to appear from Bai Ye's body. This was formed after the flesh and blood were burned by the electric current to 200 to 300 degrees. "Mr. Bai, is this how you usually exercise?" The little naughty boy looked at Bai Ye, who was expressionless throughout the whole process, and couldn't help but ask Smith, who was controlling the machine next to him. "Not really. This set of equipment actually arrived just a week ago," Smith said with an expression recalling the past. "In fact, my boss and I haven't known each other for even a month today. Can you imagine? A month ago, My boss was a skinny boy who couldn't even beat me. Smith couldn't help scratching his hair. Why did it seem like a long time had passed even though it had only been a month? Can't even beat you. The little naughty boy subconsciously looked at Smith standing next to him. He should be just an ordinary person. Yeah, I remember the first day we met, the boss was paralyzed because of training and couldn't even walk. Then on the third day, he broke all the world records of ordinary humans. On the sixth day, one person killed 7 people with guns. Bank robbers solved. On the 8th day, he tortured a superhero called the Punisher who came to his door. On the 19th day, he killed thousands of infected people controlled by mutants. After that, this device was built, and then today it's the 28th day since I met my boss. The more Smith talked, the weirder his expression became. Thinking about it carefully, it seemed really outrageous. It had only been less than a month, but so many things had happened, and it's only been 1 month. What if it's 2 months? Half a year? What about a year? He didn't dare think about what would happen next. The little naughty people on the side were dumbfounded. If what Smith said was true, then it was too exaggerated. Bai Ye was simply a Superman. Bai Ye listened to their conversation word for word, and with the terrifying machine running, Bai Ye's physique began to move towards 3.2 little by little. It is expected that after another 22 hours of training, it will improve, not to mention the boring exercise program here at Bay. Peter's side is in dire straits. On the streets of New York City, Peter Parker, wearing a classic red and blue suit, eagerly swings on a spider silk swing on a high-rise building. Behind him, a 2-5-meter tall lizard man wearing a white coat and covered with green scales was climbing on a high-rise building and chasing him. Along the way, the lizard man roared and dug his hard claws into the wall. Supported by the terrifying power, the hard walls separated like tofu and headed towards Peter. Chapter 66 Dr. Lizard. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Tough luck, bad luck, bad luck. Peter Parker kept shouting talkatively, trying to use the spider silk to throw off the hot pursuit behind him. The 2 people walking on the ground among high-rise buildings also attracted the attention of New York residents below. The reason why this happened started when he joined the Osborn group. After getting an internship opportunity at Osborn, he naturally met Curt Connors, who was doing research there. Especially after learning that his father, who died when he was young, was actually Dr. Connors' partner. He gave Connors a set of equations left by his father to help the other person's bottlenecked experiment proceed smoothly. Then within a few days, he saw that Dr. Connors, who chose to experiment on his own body because of the pressure of Osborn Company, turned into a giant, lizard monster. Fleeing bugs. Connors roared, and thrust his right hand into the wall, lifting up a large piece of the wall and throwing it towards Peter. In an instant, Peter's spider sense came into play, and he jerked the spider silk in his hand to avoid the stone wall. But when he saw the stone wall falling into the screaming crowd below, he secretly said something bad and hurriedly stopped escaping. He pressed the spider silk launcher on his wrist repeatedly and successfully hung the stone wall in midair. I caught you. Before Peter could breathe a sigh of relief, the lizard man's figure had already jumped up high and hit Peter's back hard, knocking him to the ground in an instant. Dr. Lizard's left hand was like a steel claw. He grabbed Peter's red and blue tights and pulled hard, making 3 bloody wounds on his suit. His right hand stabbed towards the eye, but was killed by Peter's right hand. Deadly stuck, with the advantage of crushing power, Dr. Lizard's claws moved closer to Peter's eyes. Seeing that they were about to pierce Peter's brain, a feeling of weakness came from his body, as if the efficacy of the serum was about to disappear. Taking advantage of Dr. Lizard's weakness, Peter hurriedly kicked him down, and then immediately shot out spider silk and disappeared into the city. In the distance, the siren on the police car gradually sounded. Dr. Lizard looked at the disappearing Spider-Man, exhaled angrily, and was immediately attracted by something falling on the ground. Looking at the work card that had just been torn open and dropped to the ground, Dr. Lizard's eyes flashed with a cold light. That spider turned out to be you, Peter Parker. You are the last achievement of your father. Putting away the certificate, Dr. Lizard took advantage of the effect of the medicine to disappear before the police car arrived. At night, Peter crawled into his room in pain, threw away his battle clothes, looked in the mirror at the huge wound stretching from his chest to his waist and abdomen, and grimaced in pain. The pain in his body reminded him of the way Bai Ye had beaten him to pieces during exercise. Wasn't that guy in pain? Peter took out his phone from his pocket and dialed Bai Ye's number. In the newly purchased villa, Bai Ye hugged Camilla on the bed and was about to invite her to play poker, but the phone hanging on the clothes next to her rang immediately, gently covering Camilla's lips that were leaning towards him for a kiss. Bai Ye picked up the phone and saw that the caller ID read, "Spider-Man, it's so late, what are you calling?" Bai Ye answered the call casually and said in a cold tone, "Hey, what's the matter? You called me so late at night." I personally caused the birth of a monster." Peter Parker grabbed the phone, told the whole story, and asked Bai Ye for help. After listening to the whole process, Bai Ye looked at Camilla, who was looking at him with eyes, and said after thinking, "You want to ask me for help? Then you must first find out where the doctor is now. Do you know his whereabouts now?" I don't know, but I know the doctor's home, and I think you can find others there," Peter Parker said thoughtfully. "My time is precious. Please call me after you find the person," Bai Ye said and hung up the phone, then looked at Camilla, who was lying on his chest. He exercised all day long, played poker with Camilla in bed, and called Gwen from time to time to communicate with her. Occasionally, Kingpin would call to talk about the progress of his book. There are too many things to keep him busy. Where can he find the free time to accompany Peter to find someone? Wait until he finds someone. Looking at Camilla, Bai Ye raised the corners of his mouth slightly and said, "I just awakened my superpower today. I think we can change our gameplay a little bit tonight." "New way to play?" Camilla blushed and covered her mouth after saying this. On the other side, Peter held the hung-up phone, feeling the pain caused by the wound, and twitched the corner of his mouth. "We can't let the situation continue to escalate. It seems we have to take a day off tomorrow to find Dr. Connor's location. Maybe everything can be saved." Peter planned this. The next day, after Bai Ye experienced a night of wind and rain inside the small building, he looked in the mirror at his strong body covered with scars due to his violent abilities, sighed softly, and reminded himself, "Female sex has brought me to this point. Bai Ye, I can't go on like this anymore. I quit sex from today on." As he finished speaking, the cell phone beside him rang in time. He thought it was Peter calling, but when he lowered his head, he saw that the contact's note was, "Director's little cotton-padded jacket." "Hey, Gwen, I remember you should still be in class now, right? How can you be free at this time?" Bai Ye put the thought of quitting sex behind her head and said with a smile, but Gwen's panicked voice came from the other end of the phone. "Bai Ye, a giant lizard-like monster just ran out of the school and is now looking for people everywhere in the school." Boom. 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 Gwen was talking on the phone, and then she heard the constant roar from Bai Ye's side, which made her worry. "Bai, is something wrong with you over there too? I have nothing to do here. Wherever you are in school now, I will come to find you," Bai Ye said calmly. His figure had turned into an afterimage, and kept moving forward amidst the sound of exploding air. "My classmates and I are all staying in the library now. I know, 3 minutes, no, it only takes 2 minutes, I will get there, you just need to stay quietly," Bai Ye said. Without hanging up the phone, he kept talking. He knew that what Gwen needed most was a sense of security in a crisis, so he used his inner strength to protect his phone from damage, and at the same time rushed to school at a speed invisible to the naked eye. In the Zhongqing High School library, under everyone's frightened eyes, a huge bone claw easily tore open the heavy door. Then a huge head stretched out and stared at everyone in the hall with anxious eyes. Chapter 67 Crush. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Looking at the hideous head covered with scales peeking out of the door, the screams of terror echoed through the entire library in an instant. Dozens of people hiding in the entire library all fled in panic, while Dr. Lizard's eyes continued to scan everyone present. "Where is Peter Parker?" Dr. Lizard's eyes did not find his familiar figure. The next moment, his body crashed down the entire wall like a tank. Then he jumped up high and grabbed an escaping student. "Ah, let me go," Even though Dr. Lizard didn't use force deliberately, it still shattered several of the student's bones, and the severe pain made him faint. Seeing that the person in his hand was unconscious, Dr. Lizard threw him away, picked up another student and asked, "Let me ask you, where is Peter Parker?" Who is Peter Parker?" "I don't know him." The student who was caught screamed in pain. There was only one exit in the entire library. Looking at the huge figure blocking the door, everyone couldn't help but tremble and didn't dare to make any sound. At this moment, Bai Ye was still on the way here, listening to the voice that kept coming from the phone asking, "Did that monster break into the library?" "Wait for me a little longer, I'll be right back." "How long will it be soon?" A girl next to Gwen couldn't help but asked after hearing the voice coming from Bai Ye. "Also, that monster keeps catching people and asking who Peter Parker is, so who is Peter Parker? Why are you looking for a lizard-like guy? Who is Peter Parker?" "Well, that's a good question." Even though he was on the road, Bai Ye still couldn't help but laugh out loud. This was a bit too funny. Gwen hid behind a bookshelf and looked at the lizard monster that was constantly destroying the library and said, "That monster is coming here. How long do you need to get there?" "How long? I'm afraid it will take 3. Bai Ye said in a heavy tone, 3 minutes. Everyone around Gwen thought in fear that in less than a minute, the lizard monster would come here and tear them apart. 2. Bai Ye said slowly, leaving everyone speechless. "Don't use the countdown at this time." 1. Bai Ye spat out the last number. With a loud bang, the south wall of the library shattered into a large hole 3 meters in diameter in an instant, and a figure shattered the entire wall like a lizard man and flew in. Bai Ye, who arrived at the scene, hung up the phone with a beep, looked at Gwen with a smile and said, "I told you, I'm on time." "It's you." Dr. Lizard watched as the irritable expression of the young man in front of him became extremely solemn. Due to the media's ability to spread information, he had also heard Bai Ye's video. "Oh, have you heard of me?" Bai Ye slowly walked towards Dr. Lizard. "Then you should know that Zhongqing High School is my school. I just want to find Peter Parker." Looking at the young man slowly walking towards him, Dr. Lizard's elegance gained the upper hand and began to defend himself. After all, he could not defeat the young man in front of him, and this appearance of being a doormat made everyone else speechless. They secretly thought that their attitude changed too quickly, and it was hard to imagine the manic appearance of the lizard man before. "If you want to find Peter Parker, this sentence is your confession before going to prison." Bai Ye stood still in front of Dr. Lizard, with an extremely relaxed expression. He had been practicing hard for 30 days since he got the panel. If he couldn't beat Dr. Lizard in front of him, it would be a shame for his hard work and amazing talent. When he came, he noticed someone behind him taking a video, so he didn't take action directly, preparing to let the lizard man take action first. "Don't force me." Seeing Bai Ye's aggressive look, Dr. Lizard's ferocity gradually emerged, and his eyes began to fill with murderous intent. "Forcing you? Come on, you are breaking the law, brother." Bai Ye said. His tone was extremely harsh, and finally aroused Dr. Lizard's ferocity, and he swung his giant claw at Bai Ye, but at the next moment, purple light flashed past, and Dr. Lizard's entire right arm was broken at the root. Before he could react, the severe pain of the broken arm had already flooded his brain. "Hey, everyone saw it, he was the one who made the move first." Bai Ye said, looking at the attribute panel out of the corner of his eye. Description column, detect you launching attacks on others and collect opponent data. Name, Curtis Coat Connors, Strength, 3.1. Agility, 2.5. Physique, 4.3. Spirit, 2.3. Charisma, 0.5. The pain caused by the broken arm completely aroused Dr. Lizard's ferocity. He opened his bloody mouth and roared at Bai Ye. Roar. The moment he opened his mouth, Bai Ye's fist had already broken through the air and hit Dr. Lizard's jaw with all its strength, silencing his roar. The powerful force from the bottom up also penetrated his brain and shattered his jaw. As if being hit by a train traveling at full speed, Dr. Lizard's body was thrown high into the air, flying 3 meters before crashing to the ground, leaving conspicuous cracks in the wooden floor. In just an instant, the two men, who had about the same strength but a huge gap in agility, were able to tell the difference without any pressure. "You must run away or you will die here." Dr. Lizard thought so in his heart. Enduring the pain, he stood up and wanted to leave, but seeing that the opponent not only refused to surrender, but dared to run away, Bai Ye's body turned into an afterimage and stopped in front of him. Then he put his left foot on the ground and made a power-charging movement with his right leg. At that moment, Dr. Lizard's eyes shrank to the size of a pinhead, and he looked at Bai Ye, who was gathering strength and preparing to take off his legs. His beastly instinct even smelled the breath of death. Wait, I vote, late. The mysteries I defeated were all ready. Bai Ye's eyes were extremely cold, and hundreds of tons of power from his right leg were poured out without any reservation. The moment Dr. Lizard was kicked in the abdomen, blood and supersonic air waves knocked down all the books around him. Dr. Lizard's figure had been lifted up by the huge force and shot out instantly. Boom! 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 After 3 consecutive roars, Dr. Lizard's body crashed through the library wall. After flying more than 10 meters in the air, a large crater full of cracks was made on the ground. At the location where his abdomen was hit, a huge blood hole appeared from the front and back, and the internal organs inside had been shattered into pieces. Humph, you understand the pain a little bit. Bai Ye looked at the unconscious figure through the wall and said calmly. At Bai Ye's ankles, the trouser legs had been torn into pieces as a result of the move just now. Chapter 68 S.H.I.E.L.D. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Ice cold. Pain. Lying on the cold floor of the Midtown High School playground, Dr. Connors felt nothing but excruciating pain around his abdomen. As for the abdomen itself, the intestines were scattered on the road, so how could one feel the pain if there was nothing there? With a slight leap, Bai Ye crossed a distance of more than 10 meters from the library to Dr. Lizard, looking at the broken-armed man who had recovered his internal organs and returned to normal human shape. Bai Ye thought to himself, actually, with my current strength, I can do well enough in the Marvel world, right? Hundreds of tons of power, Mach 1 movement speed, skin that can withstand heavy machine guns, extraordinary immortality, the special ability to become virtual, all of the above are reflected in Bai Ye. As long as he doesn't get involved with other things, he can live well in most situations in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Looking at the unconscious man in front of him, Bai Ye took out his cell phone, thought for a while and then dialed a number. Hello, General Ross. Yes, it's me, Bai Ye. White Knight. In the experimental base, Ross asked while watching his non-commissioned officers train the soldiers, why do you suddenly want to call me? I didn't invite you to dinner last week and you refused. I'm too busy, so I don't have time. Now I have found a good experimental material here, which has been subdued by me. You can come over and receive it. Remember to send me a copy when you make the experimental results later. Bai Ye laughed. Said. Good experimental material? Ross said with interest, holding a cigarette in his mouth. How good is it? This material is the core developer of the biological experiment project of Osborne Company. Because of the pressure of Osborne Company, he conducted human experiments on himself, and then became a lizard man with ordinary human intelligence but extreme personality. If the side effects are removed, it feels much stronger than the super soldier serum you have now. Bai Ye said with a smile. Osborne's experimental project? Okay, where are you now? I'll send someone over immediately. Ross couldn't wait to ask. It happened that their research on vampires was now stuck in a bottleneck. The location? It's right here in Zhongqing High School. The experimental materials suddenly attacked the school just now, causing some casualties, but I have successfully stopped it. If we don't act faster, the police might come here first. Bai Ye said, already hearing Ross's voice ordering the officers to dispatch on the phone. After hanging up the phone, Bai Yeqing let out a breath. Many enthusiastic students had gathered behind him. Bai, do you still remember me? A student came up and greeted Bai Ye with some restraint on his face. Bai Ye recognized the man's identity at a glance. It was his former classmate AI-1. When Bai Ye was training with sulfuric acid, he slapped himself in the face and showed a bleeding strip, but compared to the familiar appearance of the other party before, AI-1's demeanor at this moment is even more reserved and a bit humble. AI-1, it hasn't been a month yet, how can I forget my classmates? Bai Ye looked at the reserve L1 and hugged him gently without mind. Seeing the other person's expression of surprise because of his little action, Bai Ye knew that there was an invisible barrier between them. There was nothing he could do about it, because they were in different classes. At the scene at this moment, not only AI1, more and more classmates gathered around, all looking at him passionately. Bai Ye, can you give me an autograph and take a photo with me? My brother still doesn't believe you are my classmate. I want to prove it to him. Bai, I'm a fan of yours. I've read every one of your reports. I've watched the video about fighting mutants hundreds of times. I've already pre-ordered 3 of the books you're going to publish next month. This collection is for you to read, one by yourself and one for giving as a gift. Bai, the sewer pipe in my house is blocked, so can you come to my house and help me fix it? Wink wink. Seeing more and more people gathered around, Bai Ye always kept the elegant smile on his face when facing the camera. He casually took the notebook and pen handed over by a student and signed his name on it, but the speed of his signature still couldn't keep up with the number of students signing up. Some students in particular were simply immoral. From time to time, they would reach out and touch Bai Ye's body, and the female Bai Ye could bear it. While dealing with the enthusiasm of these people, Bai Ye gave Gwen, who was looking at her from behind the crowd, a look and asked her to wait for him for a while. The other party also understood and stared quietly from a distance. Not long after, as the alarm bell rang, George got out of the car and looked at Bai Ye, who was surrounded by students, with a speechless expression on his face. Why is it you again? Hey, the director is here. Bai Ye walked out of the crowd and said, hello, I have solved the problem. Your police car can park under the teaching building first. George glanced at his daughter who was looking at her from the crowd. He sighed helplessly and said, tell me, what happened this time? It's just a mutated lizard that attacked the school. Well, it's lying over there. Bai Ye said, and then sharply saw a group of men in black approaching the unconscious professor. Those guys shouldn't be yours people. Huh? George turned back alertly and immediately walked up and said, who are you, what are your identities, and what do you want to do? Seeing the police coming, the leader, an elegant man, took out his ID from his pocket. Oh, I am FBI Agent Coulson. I am here to investigate this case. FBI. George looked at the man with a gentle smile in front of him suspiciously, but after flipping through the documents, he really didn't feel anything was wrong. This is a suspect in the case. You can't just take him away. I need to ask for permission from above. But Bai Ye's eyes on the side had narrowed slightly. The name Coulson reminded him of a certain organization that was always in trouble, S.H.I.E.L.D. You are Bai Ye. At this time, Agent Coulson stepped forward, with a polite but distant smile on his face, and stretched out his hand to Bai Ye. I would like to ask you to take a transcript. Do you have time? I think there is no need to write down the transcript. I will give the report to your director alone later. At this time, a slightly high-pitched voice came in from the side, and Ross looked at Cole with a look that looked like rat shit. Son, S.H.I.E.L.D's cops are always in trouble. As for this suspect, our military wants it. Ross looked at Coulson. Behind him, because of Bai Ye's reminder, he directly brought a large number of troops, which was not inferior to S.H.I.E.L.D. in terms of momentum. Chapter 69 William Stryker. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. At the scene, looking at Ross with an aggressive attitude, Coulson took a step back helplessly and chose to lower his head. In Coulson's view, it was reasonable for the other party to be so angry. Previously, S.H.I.E.L.D. asked Rose to deal with vampires, but due to incorrect intelligence, Rose's men suffered heavy losses. If you continue to be tough this time, you will completely break your skin. If you encounter vampires or mutants in the future, don't ask Rose to help. Seeing Coulson retreat, Ross snorted, his face looked better, and he waved his hand, asking his soldiers to step forward and carry Dr. Lizard's body back. It just so happens that there is no place to deploy the equipment used to restrain the Hulk in the base. Since this guy is also green after his transformation, we can use it to restrain him. Looking at Bai Ye, who was watching the show, Ross showed an appreciative smile on his face and said, let's go, kid, before the media comes, I'll invite you to dinner. You can't say you don't have time this time. It has to be said that Ross is still very satisfied with Bai Ye. In the past, when he received calls from S.H.I.E.L.D. and the like, asking him to go out to capture experimental materials, he either lost his troops or came back defeated. Those low-risk, high-yield actions are left to others to take their turn. As a result, I got to know this boy Bai Ye. Not only did he think of him immediately after seeing the materials, but he also packed the materials before they came. He, Lao Luo, had never had such a smooth battle, but facing his invitation, Bai Ye still said without hesitation, "Sorry, Rose, I really have something to do." Ross frowned and said dissatisfied, "What is so important?" "I remember you are going to publish a book next month, and you are also cooperating with that gangster to promote it all over the city. Just cut off all contact with that kind of thing. I will bring you to see my other one later. Colleague, he also wants to get to know you." Bai Ye asked curiously, "Another colleague? Who is it?" "William Stryker, of course." Ross smiled and said, "This guy is a demon who targets mutants. He expresses his appreciation for your identity as a pure human being, so he wants to invite you to fight against mutants together." "Bai Ye, who has become a mutant, I didn't want to go in the first place, but after you said that, I didn't want to go even more." Bai Ye thought helplessly. Of course he knew how hostile William Stryker was towards mutants, and that he was responsible for many of the X-Men films. Who knows if such a senior official who specializes in targeting mutants carries any equipment for detecting mutants. How embarrassing it would be if he met him and his identity was recognized. "You can help me reject him. I have considered joining the Mutant Protection Organization before, and I might not get along with him." Bai Ye prevaricated, and Ross was immediately silenced by these words. Thinking of Stryker's character, Ross said helplessly, "Okay, boy, I will talk to him, but what is something important for you?" Bai Ye looked at George aside and smiled. "Compared with eating with you, of course it is more fun to eat with the beautiful daughter of the police chief." George, who was arranging for the police to question the students, felt a chill on his back. When he turned around, he saw Bai Ye's kind smile. Hearing that it was for this reason, Ross was speechless and said, "What's the matter?" "I, a lieutenant general in the Air Force, also have a daughter, who is still single. If you are willing, I can match you too. Come on, I'll do it next time, I'll do it next time." Bai Ye waved his hand, and in response to Rose's glaring expression, he made a cross-legged posture with his legs, jumped up, and disappeared into the clouds directly in front of everyone's eyes. Superior, in the deserted corner, Coulson followed the headset and said, "Director, General Ross came just now. The lizard man was forcibly taken away by him, and the invitation to Bai Ye was also blocked by him." "It doesn't matter, just leave the lizard man to him. As for Bai Ye, I'll go and talk to him in person." Nick said lightly. Beside Nick Fury, you can see a somewhat blurry video playing on a huge screen. The content inside is exactly the video of Bai Ye's battle with the lizard man that has just been circulated on the internet. Beside him, several physicists were writing calculations and conducting force analysis on Bai Ye's battle process in the video. "It doesn't make sense." A physicist scratched his head strangely and said, "According to his leg strength of more than 300 tons and a kick at supersonic speed, let alone the trouser legs, even the trousers can be exploded by the reaction force." "Yes. His legs can travel at supersonic speeds. Why do you care about his pants? Who knows what material his pants are made of? Maybe they are special engineering materials." Another scientist beside him explained. "But, is the gap in this guy's combat power too big? Compared to when he fought the vampire 9 days ago, his speed is more than twice as fast, but his strength is not bad, only about 4 times more. Zhangzhua, do you know that this video is his full strength?" The scientist rolled his eyes and said, "Maybe, he just wanted to avoid using too much force and causing his pants to fall off like you said, so he did it twice. Have you lost your strength?" "It makes sense." Several people nodded in agreement, and Nick Fury, who had listened to the whole process, tapped his fingers on the table gently, thinking about something in his heart that no one knew. Outside the teaching building, unlike the students who were watching the excitement, Gwen sat on the steps and waited silently. the next moment, a pair of hands suddenly stretched out, covering her eyes, and said in a still familiar voice, "Guess who I am?" Seeing this childish behavior, Gwen twitched her lips helplessly, turned around and hugged Bai Ye and said with concern, "Dad didn't give you a hard time just now, did he?" "Of course not. After chatting with me for a few words, he went to do other things." Bai Ye also gently hugged Gwen's slim waist and said, "You also know Director George's attitude. You don't agree or disagree?" "Well." Gwen leaned on Bai Ye's chest, and then asked, "What have you been doing lately? Sometimes I don't even return your calls." "I spent most of my time exercising, but I did take in a mutant in the factory," Bai Ye said casually. Because Gwen could hear the roar of the machine when she was on the phone during the day, she didn't know anything about Bai Ye's exercise with the machine in the factory. "Mutant? Male or female?" Gwen raised her head with some vigilance. "Of course she's a girl. She's pretty good looking, but for now, it doesn't go beyond pure friendship," Bai Ye said, seeing the corners of Gwen's mouth slightly pouting due to dissatisfaction. Bai Ye laughed and hugged her princess as she exclaimed, and then the true energy in her body surged out to wrap the two together. "Bai, what are you going to do?" Gwen said in panic, hugging Bai Ye's neck. "I didn't owe you a movie ticket last time. Let's just go there now and lie down and don't move," Bai Ye said with a smile, then kicked off the ground with his legs and flew towards the cinema with Gwen. Chapter 70 Sentinel Project. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. In New York, in Bai's factory, the little naughty boy stared closely at the white mouse that was writhing in pain in his hand and gradually losing its ability to resist. There were already hundreds of drained white mice lying around her, and in the sealed box behind her, hundreds of lively white mice were quietly waiting for their fate. Looking at the dying white mouse with dry hair in his hand, the little naughty murmured, "It's the 151st one. Compared with the first one, it will survive much longer. Mr. Bai is right. It seems that it won't be long before I can control my ability to absorb. If it can only absorb physical strength, then I can help Mr. Bai train." Thinking that in a few days, he would be able to communicate with Bai Ye openly, a hint of red appeared on the little naughty face, and he quickly reached into the box with his right hand and fished out a white mouse. It seemed that her emotional fluctuations affected her ability to control. After just a few seconds, the 152nd mouse was drained of its life force and died faster than ever before. Seeing the white mouse dying so quickly, the little naughty boy took a deep breath to calm down before reaching into the box. "I didn't expect that the world would be different, and that Inception would be released in the Marvel Universe in 2010. In the cinema, watching S.H.I.E.L.D spin the top, Gwen leaned on Bai Ye's shoulder and watched the movie quietly together. Since it was daytime on a weekday, there were only a few people in the cinema, but as he watched, Bai Ye felt something was wrong, because the hearts of some of the moviegoers nearby were beating too strongly. Although these people were the same as ordinary people in terms of demeanor, temperament, and clothing, in Bai Ye's ears, everyone's heartbeat was steady and strong, and it would not be an exaggeration to say that they were athletes. Thinking of some possibility, Bai Ye narrowed his eyes slightly. It was rare to go out to watch a movie. If he was interrupted, he would really die, but fortunately for the other party, Bai Ye kept quiet during the whole process of watching the movie. After that, even after Bai Ye finished the movie and walked out of the theater, he didn't behave like a monster. "Director, won't you follow?" An agent asked as he watched Bai Ye holding Gwen's hand and jumping away. "I'm here to communicate, and I don't mean to offend anyone. There's absolutely no need to get involved at this time," Nick Fury said calmly. Without the interruption of the agents, the entire morning and night were spent playing with Gwen, walking from the movie theater to the amusement park, kissing and hugging her along the way, which gradually increased the tacit understanding between the two. When it was noon, Bai Ye took a look at the sky and said, "It's getting late, I'll take you back first." "Go back," Gwen said with some reluctance. "Why don't you play a little longer? Today's entertainment time has seriously exceeded the standard. I have to go back to exercise. If you want to play, please wait until the next appointment," Bai Ye said. "Tonight, I can only shorten the time to play poker with Camilla in bed." Make up for the missing workouts, Gwen gently hugged Bai Ye's neck, and nodded somewhat dully. Then Bai Ye picked up the girl by her waist, then jumped up slightly and rushed towards the girl's home. In a certain military base, Stryker was holding a phone, and Ross's voice came from the phone, "That boy from Bai has rejected you. He is a mutant protectionist and can't get along with you." Mutant protectionist? Are there any normal people who want to protect mutants these days? Stryker looked unhappy, but still said helplessly, "I know, I will not go to him in the future." After hanging up the phone, Stryker turned around and said, "How are the preparations for the United Nations Summit in New York going?" That the subordinate behind him immediately handed over a document and said, "This is the list of summit participants we are investigating." Stryker opened the list, browsed through the documents, and quickly locked on a name among the visitors, Charles Xavier. "I knew you would come over." Stryker smiled and shook the list in his hand. At the United Nations Summit in New York a month later, one of the topics was related to the Mutant Registration Act. Under such circumstances, how could Professor, thinking of Professor as long as you have Professor, according to the original plot direction, before the Global Summit, Professor. Catch this mutant on the way to the United Nations Summit. Remember, this mutant has great psychic abilities, but physically he is just a cripple in a wheelchair. He must be knocked unconscious before he can react. Stryker pointed to Charles's name on the list and said coldly, "I want to eliminate every mutant from the Earth." "Yes." The sergeants behind him said in unison, then turned around to prepare for action. As the sergeants left, a sealed file bag was lying quietly on Stryker's desk. The title on the file bag was, Sentinel Robot Mass Production Plan. The names of the people who handled this plan are, Bolivar Trask, Howard Stark, Alexander Pierce, Henry Jonathan Pym, Reed Richards. Stryker's eyes fell on the document bag. He put the documents away solemnly, stood up and walked out of the room. At this moment, Bai Ye didn't know Stryker's plan. After doing a handsome somersault in the air, he landed smoothly with Gwen in his arms. "Good afternoon, we'll call tonight." Bai Ye kissed Gwen gently on the side of her face and sent her into the house. The moment the door closed, Bai Ye's figure disappeared instantly, and amidst the howling of the wind, he came in front of a man with a head like a braised egg. "He sent someone to follow me all the way, and then specifically stopped in front of my girlfriend's house. So, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., do you have anything to do with me?" Bai Ye looked at Nick Fury and asked in a calm tone. Nick Fury was not surprised by Bai Ye's words revealing his identity. After all, Bai Ye had a good relationship with Rose, and it was normal for him to know that, so he said in a kind tone, "It's nothing, I just want to chat with you." "There's no problem with chatting, but can you shut up the psychologist across from your headset?" Bai Ye stared directly at Nick Fury's head.